It's
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Wednesday.
It's the preview show. It's the No Nay Never podcast.
Hello and welcome to the preview show brought to you by the No Nay Never podcast. As ever, I am your co-host, side seat driver, whatever you want to call it, but I'm certainly not the main event. I am only Natalie Bromley, because the main guy, the main geezer, the one we love and the absolute headliner of the preview show is, of course, Dave Roberts, Statman Dave. Dave, welcome back.
Hi, Natalie. It seems so long since we last spoke.
It really does. It's been all of 2 minutes. How has your few days been between the Palace game and the City game? What have you been up to?
Are we going to let the listener into a secret?
Yes, I think we probably should. Full disclosure, listeners, Dave and I are recording this preview show before the Palace game. So as it stands, we are actually in the past and you are in the future and we're talking to you in the future and it's all very Marty McFly. So we don't actually know at this moment in time what the result was at the weekend. So we're going to soldier through anyway. We're going to pretend that the Clarets won. Oh, this is going to be terrible, Dave, if we actually got really beat really badly, won't it? Everybody will do. We'll hate us.
Oh, we could record all three results, couldn't we?
We could. Let's not do that. As you can tell, listeners,
No.
My friend the flu is still with me because it's only 30 seconds since I recorded the show that was the Palace preview, so I'm still feeling under the weather. So apologies. There's three of us on this week's podcast. There is Natalie, there is Dave, and there is the bubonic plague. Now, before we get into the Manchester City preview, we don't have a quiz question because we didn't set you one last week. If, of course, you remember, Dave teased us in the preview show for the Palace game by saying that he was going to make us wait until tonight for a new quiz question. So stay tuned, listeners, because by the end of this week's show, we're going to have a hot off the press, brand new quiz question for you to test your little brains with it. So we're going to go straight into the Manchester City preview. Tuesday the 3rd of December at 8:15, which Dave nicely reminds me is on Amazon Prime Video. This is something that's all new and shiny. I think they're streaming. They're streaming some on Boxing Day as well, I think, Dave, aren't they, if I remember so correctly?
They're doing all 20 games across the two. It's basically the 3rd to the 5th of December, and then also the 26th and 27th is across 2 days afterwards. But if you are sneaky, you can get the Amazon Prime 30-day trial for free and watch all games for free if you're not going to the matches.
Good tip there, Dave. Well, let's get into it then. Manchester City, current reigning Premier League champions. Dave, tell us all about our opposition.
Opposition stats.
Well, before I start talking about Manchester City, I'm going to mention their neighbours, Manchester United, because it took them until 1903 to settle on their current club name. United previously played in the league as Newton Heath, but the forerunners of the Manchester City club also played under different names in their early years, as Ardwick until 1894, that included 2 seasons in the Football League, and prior to that as St Mark's of West Gorton, rather a mouthful, as early as 1880. However, City's crest now shows the date of the incorporation of the club as a registered company in 1894, seemingly ignoring a couple of years of league history prior to that.
Yeah, it's not like City to erase historic data, is it? What about their nicknames, please, Dave?
Well, City, the Sky Blues, and Citizens are all nicknames attributed to Manchester City, and we've got nothing much more exciting than that, really.
No, it isn't. They are quite broad names. I'm assuming the Citizens is a reference to City.
Yes, and I think they were called that going back lots and lots of years, although it's still mentioned from time now. Yeah.
Is that a technical stat? Lots and lots of years.
Yes, that's technical.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's move on to their team then, Dave. Who's their all-time goal scorer?
Well, when we look at these, there are ones that go back into the depths of time, ones we've probably never heard of, although I think most people probably have heard of this one. Sergio Aguero is already City's all-time top goal scorer with 244. It's perhaps surprising that neither he nor Sean Goater, with 9 and 8 goals respectively, are not top of the list of Manchester City scorers against Burnley. One player can go one better than both of them, and that's Tommy Browell, who scored 10 times in matches against Burnley, and he was at City from 1913 to 1926.
I am very surprised that it's neither Aguero nor Goto, and I absolutely hate playing both of them players because they all flipping well and score against us all the time.
Well, Sean Goater won't be playing on Tuesday, thankfully, and I don't think Sergio Aguero will be either. I think there's looking like
he's injured,
gonna,
isn't he? Is he about 6 weeks? Six weeks or so. They have been pretty unlucky with injuries of City this season, I've got to say. But when they've got about 70 odd players registered on their squad, my sympathy levels are quite low. What about City's heaviest Burnley defeat then, please?
Perhaps
Burnley's heaviest defeat against City.
Burnley's, our biggest defeat at Turf Moor against Manchester City. Perhaps surprisingly, the 6-1 defeat in 2010. That was the one where Kevin McDonald was subbed at half-time and famously ended up in the pub for the second half. That isn't our heaviest defeat. There's been one worse than that.
God.
Yeah, we've got to go back 20 years to just over 20 years. It was early 1999 for that. That was actually in the March of Stan Ternant's first season in charge. We'd lost the previous match. That was also at home, 5-0 to Gillingham. And Manchester City piled on the agony with a crushing 6-0 defeat in early March 1999. That also included a Sean Goater hat-trick. Imagine the meltdown on social media if it had been around in 1999. They're thinking about. We also lost the next game. That was again at home. I don't know why. We played 3 consecutive home games, and that was against Preston. That was by 1-0. It was a televised game, and it looked like we might be doomed to be relegated that season. We were really struggling on a really bad run, but Chairman Barry Kilby and the board stuck with Stan Ternant, and we went unbeaten in the remaining 11 matches of that season. And that was the basis, for the following season, 1999-2000, which ended in automatic promotion.
Excellent. I love those stats. That's great. It's definitely one to look back in the history books there. What about Burnley's biggest win then?
We've beaten Manchester City 4 times at Turf Moor by a margin of 3 goals. And the most recent of those was back in September 1973. We had 2 goals from Paul Fletcher and another from Martin Dobson in a 3-0 win.
Excellent. And what about Burnley's last win?
This is one that we'll remember, will live long in the memory. Our last home win against Manchester City was a Premier League fixture, and that was back in the 2014-15 season. George Boyd scored a perfectly placed low drive past Joe Hart in the Manchester City goal, and we managed to hang on for all 3 points. That was in March of 2015.
It was, and God, did we hang on as well. I remember that game. What about last season's meeting, please, Dave?
Manchester City came to Turf Moor back towards the end of last season. That was in late April, and they were desperate for all 3 points to ensure they stayed ahead of Liverpool in the title race. It was a really tight game, which City eventually won 1-0. And it was one of those where I think it went to VAR in the end, didn't it? The ball went over the line, but only just. The referees, it wasn't VAR, it was the goal line technology.
I was going to say it's goal line technology, yeah.
The referee had the alert on the watch and gave the goal, but it was very marginally over the line. But Burnley played really, really well that day, and it looked like we might get a point out of the game or sneak something, and we didn't. So it gives us hope. We can play against teams like Manchester City and get results. So it's going to be a tough game for us on Tuesday, but we can do it. We've done it before. We've done it with George Boyd. I think we've got a better team now than we had then.
Yeah, now's the time to play them for sure, Dave.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Right, so let's move on to the man at the helm then. Tell us all about City's manager.
Josep Guardiola Sala, or Pep Guardiola, as he's more commonly known, is 48 years of age. He was born in Santpedor in Spain, if that's how you pronounce it. Santpedor, not Spain. I know how to pronounce that. And that was in January 1971. He's been Manchester City manager since the summer of... You started me off now.
That was funny. I'm sorry, it was funny.
It
You
wasn't
did
that
funny.
funny. It wasn't that funny.
It was funny. Sorry, come on, let's concentrate. Carry on, Dave.
Okay, he's been Manchester City manager since the summer of 2016, and although City didn't win any silverware in his first season, 2016-17, they have made up for it since with their Premier League title and League Cup double in 2017-18. And an impressive domestic treble last season. However, you suspect they'll be targeting European success for City this season, as well as trying to make up the ground on runaway leaders Liverpool in the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think they're going to do it this season. Okay, well, let's have a look at some head-to-head stats then, please, Dave.
Okay, our overall home record against Manchester City, and this is in all competitions, stands at played 51, won 22, drawn 12, and lost 17. But that win percentage of 43.1% is one of our worst. There's only Wolves and Brighton of the current Premier League clubs where we've got a worse home record in all-time matches. And obviously, we'll look at those. We've not played either of those at home yet, so we'll look at those in more detail when we play those teams. But we don't have a brilliant record against Manchester City, but they're the third worst of the this year's Premier League teams. For top flight home matches only, it's slightly better. Burnley have won exactly 50% of the past matches against City. So it's played 40, won 20, drawn 8, and lost 12.
Yeah, that will come as a surprise to absolutely nobody that our head-to-head stats against City aren't very good. What about the players then? Do we have any players who've played for both sides?
Rather a lot, yes. As well as Ben Mee and Joe Hart from our current squad, hoping I've not forgotten anyone this week. There's a selection of the many players who've pulled on the Burnley and Manchester City shirts since the Second World War include Joey Barton, Wayne Biggins, Lee Briscoe, Mick Doherty, Willie Donachie, Ron Futcher, Tony Grant, Adrian Heath, Jamie Hoyland, Tommy Hutchison, Stephen Jordan, Tyrone Mears, Mike Summerby, and Gareth Taylor. But that is only a selection. There were quite a lot more players than that as well.
Yeah, it's a good selection, is that one. My dad, Daddy B, just could not get Stephen Jordan's name right when he used to play for us, and he insisted on calling him Jacobs. So in our house, whenever I hear Stephen Jordan, I genuinely forget who he is, because I think I've convinced myself over time that he's actually called Jacobs, because my dad just couldn't get around to the idea that he was called Jordan. But there you go.
Doesn't even sound the same.
No, it doesn't. This is the same guy who was. Oh, who did he used to call Brian the Norwegian? I can't even remember who that was. Yeah, my dad's funny with names, bless him. Anyway, enough tales of the mind of
Christian
my father.
Calvinez.
It was Christian. No, was it Calvinez? Yeah, no, yeah, it might have been actually. No, I don't think it was. It was somebody from the last couple of years. And it's my crazy father calling him Brian the Norwegian. Okay, finally then, who's the man in the middle? Who's going to be refereeing the game?
Okay, we've got John Moss. He's going to be the referee on Tuesday evening. He's refereed 19 previous Burnley games. There have been 6 wins, 2 draws, and 11 defeats in those matches. He's also been in charge of one previous match between Burnley and Manchester City. That was at City in a Premier League match in October 2018. City were 5-0 winners that day. He's already refereed our match at Leicester City this season, and that was notable for the video assistant referee, who was Andy Madley that day, ruling out a Chris Wood effort due to a very debatable foul on Johnny Evans. Clear and obvious it was not. The video assistant referee is a different one. We've got Graham Scott on Tuesday evening.
Excellent. Well, let's not leave it there, Dave, because I know full well that that's not what you've got up your sleeve. Can we please delve into the bank of knowledge that is Statman Dave Stats and give us your miscellaneous stat of the week?
Statman Dave's Stat of the Week.
Okay, Burnley played Manchester City at Turf Moor in a First Division match on Christmas Day 1957. The Clarets came back from a goal down to win 2-1, with second half goals from Brian Pilkington and Albert Cheeseborough. This is also the last time that Burnley contested a match on Christmas Day itself. It was a football tradition that had previously taken place over many years prior to that. Coincidentally, Burnley and Manchester City have met once before on the exact same date as this week's match. 64 years ago, on December the 3rd, 1955, the teams played in a First Division match at Turf Moor. It finished 2-2 on that occasion, and the Burnley goal scorers were Peter McKay and Roy Stevenson.
That's a good stat of the week. I do love them.
That's
They're,
two. We got two
I
for one
know.
there.
You're spoiling us. It's only because we've no Fantasy Premier League this week that you're spoiling us.
It's Black Friday. It's Black Friday, 2 for 1.
Ah, very topical. I like it. For those of you who literally will not be able to rest until you know who my dad was referring to, it was indeed Freddie Over's dad, who my dad called Brian the Norwegian. So there you go. The mind of my father. Let's leave that there. So how are you feeling about the game, Dave? And I mean, it's always difficult, isn't it? You look at this City side, and they're just an incredible side. And I actually genuinely didn't think that anybody was going to go anywhere near them until Liverpool rolled out an equally ridiculous side. But as we kind of touched on in the stats section, it feels like now's the time to play them if you want to get a result.
It could be. I mean, we are capable of getting some results against the real top sides coming to Turf Moor. We have done it. We did it against maybe Tottenham against the expectations last season. We've beaten City before. We've beaten Liverpool, so we can do it on our day. We've done really well this season against the teams in the lower part of the table. I think maybe only Leicester have a better record of the apart from the real top sides. But we haven't got any results. All the teams we've lost to are all the ones above us in the league. So at some point we are going to have to get some points from those games. But they are bonuses when you get wins from those games, or even a point.
Sure.
They can be bonuses. But I guess you go into it partly with a mindset of it's a free hit. But I think if you look at it that way and that way alone, then maybe you don't get the best out of it. So I think the players will be prepared. And we saw last season the game was really, really tight. And if Burnley can keep it tight, so it's easier said than done, but if they can do, then there's always that opportunity of going. We know we've got players likes of Ashley Barnes and Chris Wood who can score goals. We've got Dwight McNeil who's capable of turning it on. We can score goals on our day and match any side in this division. And there have been some results. Not City and Liverpool don't slip up a lot, but I think even Liverpool are running away with this season. There have been 3 or 4 times when they could easily have lost those games, and they have come back and won them. So, yeah, City and Liverpool, they're not totally unbeatable. So we'll be looking to do what we can and get a result. And it's, as I say, if we get a win, it'll be fantastic. If not, we won't be that surprised. But the players just have to put their mind to it and make sure they can take that opportunity if they possibly can.
Amen to that. Well, let's leave the preview of Manchester City there, just because I think we're in danger of either running away with ourselves, and I have to force Dave to keep my feet on the ground.
There was another stat I was going to mention, but I'm not going to because it might. I'll tweet it if we win on Tuesday.
No, say it. Oh, Dave, you can't do that. You can't tease us that way. Tell us a stat.
Well, someone had tweeted me in the week and said, when was the last time that Burnley had lost on a Tuesday night at Turf Moor? And you've actually got to go back to 2013. I think it's something like 12 or 13 matches that we, I've jinxed it now.
No, you haven't. No, that's a good stat. I like it. Well, it is true, isn't it? I know it's a bit of a romantic notion, but everybody talks about Turf Moor under floodlights. It's just an incredible place to be, and I love Tuesday night games. And I think that for me is adding on to this belief that we can get something from the game. So fingers crossed. Okay, so we've got no fantasy football dream team news this week. As you know, from those of you who tuned into the Palace preview, we just thought there was just not enough time in between the two. And also, we're recording this before it's been done. So we didn't have time. We're going to give you a bumper edition of the updates for you in the next preview show, which we'll be looking at Spurs away. So fantasy football managers, sort your teams out, get your boosts done, get your captain sorted, and see who are the movers and shakers the next time we meet you.
Statman Dave's quiz question.
So instead, we finished this week's slightly shorter preview show with quiz question. Dave, what is this week's question, please?
Okay, it's an intriguing one this week, I think. A little bit different. The FA Cup third round match, which took place between Burnley and Manchester City in January 1991, was a first for Turf Moor, but can you tell us the reason why?
I don't know, but I can probably guess, but I'm not going to do. I'm going to think about this. I'm going to submit a proper, sensible answer. So, Dave, why don't you tell me and our listeners how we submit those question answers?
Tweet us or message us at No Nay Never on Twitter. You can post on the No Nay Never Facebook page or email us podcast@nonaynever.net, and we'll reveal the correct answer at the start of our next preview show.
And what if our fans are stuck, Dave? How can they get some help?
You could look at the Burnley stats page. It's got loads of information about over 5,500 past Burnley matches, and it is the source for the majority of stats that's used in our preview shows. You can find it at this short link. It's that's bit.ly/Burnley stats, and that's all in lowercase.
Excellent. Well, that is all we have time for this midweek special edition of the preview show. My thanks go to various people, as ever, producer Matt, who's had to come out of retirement midweek this week and put together the preview show. So thanks, Matt. But of course, my thanks to Dave Roberts, Statman Dave, who just works so hard to put these stats together. And without him, we wouldn't even have a show, never mind such a thoroughly enjoyable one. So, Dave, thank you very, very much. Thanks again, though, to you, the listeners, and Godspeed to any of you who are travelling to Turf Moor on Tuesday night for that visit by the champions, Manchester City. Cheer the boys on. Let's get behind them. Let's make Turf Moor rock, and let's make it a special place like we know it always is done, and hopefully bring back those 3 points. Dave and I will be back for the next preview show, which will be on Friday, previewing the trip to Spurs away to a brand new stadium. So if you've got any comments, questions, or anything you want us to discuss in between now and Friday, you know how to get hold of us. This has been the preview show brought to you by the No Nay Never podcast. Until next time.